The VA system is changing fast. If you're a veteran navigating the claims process right now, you're operating in a completely new landscape, one dominated by powerful new AI tools designed to flag inconsistencies, identify patterns, and frankly, catch people trying to game the AD system. But here's the terrifying truth. These sophisticated algorithms don't just catch intentional fraudsters, they are quietly flagging perfectly honest veterans whose habits simply look suspicious on paper. We are talking about unintentional behaviors that, when viewed through the lens of a fraud detection program in 2026, scream red flag. If you are currently filing a claim, preparing for an appeal, or even if you've been rated for years, these 5 seemingly harmless habits could be the silent triggers that land your file on the desk of an auditor, initiating a deep, painful, and potentially devastating fraud review. We are going beyond the obvious don't lie advice. We are diving into the nuanced, overlooked digital and logistical behaviors that are now triggering the system's protective mechanisms. Let's start with the first habit, which centers entirely on your perceived stability or lack thereof. Habit 1. The pattern of extreme, rapid geographic, and provider mobility. This is perhaps the most insidious trigger because it often stems from genuine necessity. A veteran needing to move for family, for better care, or simply to afford a changing economy. But to the VA's new automated review systems, a specific pattern of movement looks less like necessity and more like claim shopping or jurisdiction manipulation. The trigger isn't just one move. It's the combination of frequent address changes, coupled with rapid switches in primary care physicians, especially when those changes cross state lines and occur immediately before or during the filing of a high-value claim. Think about the data trail you leave. Every time you update your address with the VA, every time you enroll in a new VAMC or community care network, that data point is logged. If the system sees you establish residency in State A, file a high-value claim for a specific condition, and then, within 6 months, suddenly move to State B and immediately switch to a new medical provider who then writes a highly favorable nexus letter or supplemental evidence, that sequence generates a massive score on the suspicion index. The algorithm is trained to look for patterns where veterans move to jurisdictions known for having more lenient or veteran-friendly examiners, or where they cycle through providers until they find one willing to provide the most favorable medical opinion, regardless of the objective facts. This trigger is amplified if the condition you are claiming is one that requires subjective reporting, like mental health conditions or chronic pain. If you were receiving care for PTSD in Texas for 2 years and your records show a steady, moderate level of impairment, and then you move to California, switch to a new private C&P examiner, and suddenly your reported severity level skyrockets. Based on their new evaluation, the system sees the correlation between the change in location/provider and the dramatic increase in claimed severity. It looks like you are actively seeking the path of least resistance to a higher rating. To avoid this trigger, consistency is key. If you must move, document the reason for the move meticulously. If you are changing doctors, ensure the transition is smooth and that the new provider is fully aware of your history, and crucially, that the narrative of your condition remains consistent with prior medical records. A sudden, unexplained geographical leap, followed by a dramatic shift in medical opinion, is the digital signature of potential fraud, even if your intentions were pure. The VA is increasingly looking at the context of evidence, not just the content. Where that evidence originated and how quickly you move to obtain it matters immensely now. Yunwar. Habit 2. The inconsistent digital footprint contradicting TDIU or high-rating claims. This habit is a deep dive into the conflict between claimed total disability based on individual unemployability, TDIU, and the undeniable evidence of your online life. TDIU is one of the highest value claims because it asserts that you cannot maintain substantially gainful employment due to service-connected disabilities, even if your rating is less than 100%. The moment you claim TDIU, the VA is authorized to look much deeper into your financial and occupational activities. The fraud trigger here is subtle and often involves activities that veterans genuinely believe are harmless or fall outside the definition of gainful employment. The most common red flag is the highly active, monetized side hustle. If you claim TDIU, asserting that your service-connected conditions prevent you from maintaining a regular 40-hour workweek, but your social media profile links to an Etsy store, a thriving YouTube channel, or a highly active consulting business, the system will flag the contradiction. The key word here is gainful. If your side hustle generates income above the federal poverty line for a single person, which is the VA's rough threshold for substantially gainful employment, you are immediately in the review crosshairs. But the new AI tools go further than just financial checks. They look at the demands of the activity. For example, if you claim severe mobility issues preventing physical work, but your social media shows you regularly promoting a complex, time-consuming digital marketing course or managing a large, demanding online community that requires daily interaction, coordination, and high-level cognitive function, the system questions the severity of your claimed cognitive or mental health impairments. The narrative you present online, the one where you are a successful entrepreneur, a dedicated coach, or a highly active hobbyist, must align with the narrative you present to the VA, the one where you are too disabled to hold a steady job. Furthermore, the VA is increasingly utilizing advanced data scraping tools to identify patterns of sustained, high-level professional activity. This includes monitoring professional networking sites like LinkedIn. If you claim TDIU, but your LinkedIn profile is updated frequently, lists active consulting projects, or shows participation in high-level professional development courses, the AI flags the cognitive dissonance. The habit that triggers the review is the failure to maintain a consistent occupational story across all platforms. You cannot claim total unemployability in one venue while actively promoting yourself as a successful professional in another. This isn't just about income, it's about the demonstrated capacity to manage the mental, physical, and emotional demands required to sustain complex activity. Be ruthlessly honest about what your online presence communicates about your capabilities. Chandrabak. Habit 3. The aggressive, simultaneous filing of unrelated, high-value claims, the shotgun approach. This habit is about timing and volume, and it looks like an attempt to overwhelm the system or maximize the chance of a win through sheer quantity. The VA understands that disabilities often cluster. If you have PTSD, you might also have secondary conditions like GERD or migraines. That's medically sound. What triggers the fraud review is the filing of multiple, high-value, and often medically unrelated claims simultaneously, especially if these claims are filed shortly after a period of denial or a significant change in the legal or administrative environment. Imagine a veteran who has been rated at 50% for years. Suddenly, they file claims for tinnitus, common but low value, erectile dysfunction, moderate value, sleep apnea, high value, often requires secondary nexus, and a highly complex, rare neurological disorder, all within a 2-week period. To the AI, this doesn't look like a gradual realization of health issues. It looks like a strategic, coached attempt to achieve a 100% rating by throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. The specific trigger here is the lack of established medical history for the newly claimed conditions prior to the filing date. If you claim a severe condition like sleep apnea, but your medical records show no complaints, no diagnosis, and no treatment attempts until the exact moment you file the VA claim, the system questions the sudden onset and severity. This pattern suggests that the veteran, possibly guided by unscrupulous claims consultants, is manufacturing claims specifically for the VA process rather than seeking treatment for existing conditions. The AI is now specifically trained to identify claim clusters that defy typical medical progression. It looks for patterns where veterans suddenly leverage boilerplate nexus letters, linking common primary service-connected issues, like knee pain, to highly specialized, high-rating secondary conditions like fibromyalgia, without a robust, longitudinal medical history supporting the progression. To avoid this severe trigger, veterans must prioritize claims based on urgency and medical documentation. File claims only when you have established a clear medical history with a doctor, demonstrating that you have sought treatment and received a diagnosis before you initiate the formal VA process. If you must file multiple claims, space them out logically and ensure that each claim is supported by its own unique, specific medical evidence, not just generic templates. Filing 5 unrelated, complex claims at once is a mathematical trigger for intense scrutiny, because the system assumes a veteran seeking genuine care would address the most pressing issues first, not launch a mass filing campaign. Habit 4. The over-reliance on identical templated personal statements and buddy letters. In the digital age, information is shared instantly. This includes successful claim strategies, sample personal statements, and even pre-written buddy letters. While utilizing resources and getting help is crucial, the habit that triggers fraud review is the presentation of evidence that lacks authenticity and uniqueness, suggesting a coordinated, manufactured narrative rather than genuine personal accounts. The VA's review process, particularly the AI component, is excellent at detecting textual anomalies. If you submit a personal statement that uses highly technical, legalistic language that doesn't match your educational background or typical communication style, it raises a flag. More dangerously, if the VA receives 10 buddy letters from friends, family, and former colleagues, and all 10 letters use the exact same phrasing, the exact same specialized terminology, or follow an identical structural pattern, the AI interprets this as evidence coaching or fabrication. The trigger is the uniformity of narrative structure and linguistic similarity. For example, if 5 different buddy letters all contain the phrase, "I personally witnessed the profound, debilitating impact of his service-connected trauma on his social and occupational functioning," the system recognizes this as a template. Genuine personal accounts, even if they describe the same event or condition, will inevitably use different words, different levels of detail, and different emotional tones. The danger here is twofold. First, it undermines the credibility of the entire claim by suggesting the veteran is fabricating supporting evidence. Second, it can lead to the outright dismissal of all supporting lay evidence, forcing the veteran to rely solely on medical records, which might be insufficient. To maintain credibility and avoid this trigger, every piece of lay evidence, the personal statement, the buddy letters, and the witness statements, must be unique and written in the voice of the person providing the information. Encourage your witnesses to describe specific, unique memories, not generalized, clinical observations. Their job is to tell a story of impact, not to write a legal brief. If you seek help from a consultant, ensure that they are guiding you to tell your story, not handing you a script. The moment your evidence looks mass-produced, the VA will treat it as mass-produced, meaning worthless. The authenticity of the narrative is your strongest defense against the charge of manufacturing evidence. Ständig. Habit 5. Social media activity that directly contradicts physical or cognitive limitations. This is the classic, unavoidable digital trap, but the methods the VA uses to monitor and analyze this information are becoming exponentially more sophisticated in 2026. It is no longer just about catching a veteran claiming they can't walk while posting pictures of a marathon. The new fraud triggers are found in the subtle contradictions that undermine specific claims of functional impairment. If you are claiming severe limitations due to chronic back pain, e.g., inability to lift more than 10 pounds or sit for more than 30 minutes, and your social media shows you frequently posting about extensive, long-distance road trips, complex home renovation projects, or demanding physical hobbies like competitive fishing that require heavy lifting and prolonged sitting, the AI will match these activities directly against your claimed limitations. The system is specifically looking for time-stamped, geographically tagged, and visually confirmed evidence of functional capacity that exceeds the veteran's documented disability rating. The cognitive claims are even trickier. If you claim severe memory impairment, difficulty focusing, or debilitating social anxiety, often associated with high-value mental health ratings, the AI analyzes your digital behavior for patterns of high cognitive function or complex social engagement. This includes 1. High-volume, complex text, writing long, detailed, grammatically perfect, and politically charged posts that require sustained focus and complex argument formation. 2. Leadership and coordination. Publicly managing complex events, organizing large groups, or holding leadership roles in public organizations, which contradicts claims of severe social isolation or organizational impairment. 3. Real-time interaction. Participating in live video streams, podcasts, or frequent rapid-fire online debates, which undermines claims of severe anxiety or inability to communicate effectively. The new AI tools don't just look for images, they analyze the metadata and the textual content for these functional contradictions. A single photo of you lifting a heavy object might be explainable, but a pattern of geotagged check-ins at gyms, consistent updates on construction projects, or a history of managing a demanding online business constitutes a sustained digital footprint of functional capacity. The most critical mistake is the failure to adjust your online persona to align with your medical reality. You are not required to live like a hermit, but you are required to ensure that your public life does not actively and repeatedly disprove the limitations you are claiming under oath to the VA. Remember, the VA is not looking for proof that you are unhappy. They are looking for proof that your functional capacity is higher than what you claimed. If your public activity suggests you are capable of performing tasks that you told the C&P examiner you couldn't do, that is an immediate, high-priority fraud trigger that justifies a full-scale review, including potential surveillance and income verification. Conclusion. The landscape of VA claims processing has fundamentally shifted. The days of relying on paper files and human error are fading. We are now in an era where sophisticated AI tools act as the first line of defense against fraud, and these tools are designed to find patterns of inconsistency, coordination, and contradiction across every available data point: medical, logistical, financial, and digital. The 5 habits we've discussed, the rapid mobility, the TDIU contradiction, the aggressive claim stacking, the templated evidence, and the digital contradictions, are not necessarily evidence of intentional malice, but they are the silent signals that trigger the VA's suspicion protocols. The overarching principle to remember is this: authenticity is the ultimate fraud defense. Every action you take, every document you file, and every post you share must tell a consistent, verifiable story of your life and your limitations. If you must move, document the necessity. If you have a side hustle, ensure it falls clearly beneath the threshold of gainful employment and does not contradict your claimed capacity. If you file multiple claims, ensure each one is medically supported and logically timed. And above all, treat your digital footprint as an open book, because the VA is already reading it. Do not let convenience, poor advice, or carelessness transform an honest claim into a fraud investigation. Review your own habits today, align your actions with your claim narrative, and protect the benefits you earned and deserve. The system is watching, and in 2026, the algorithms are unforgiving.